It's a great day to talk hoops. We're back to some much needed basketball talk after some time off. I had a great guest last week in Kyle Pennington. He's one of the most decorated coaches in the country in the high school ranks as far as state titles, coach of the years. So if you missed that, go check it out. Today, I'm leaving the Midwest and heading to Florida. My guest today is Jordan Martz. Jordan, thanks for joining. How you doing, man?
We're doing well, doing well. We're at the office here, and a little bit of sleep. Just brought a new child into the world, so we're my wife and I. Everybody's healthy, so we're thankful. I appreciate you having me on. I'm really excited to kind of dive into some basketball topics this morning.
You are committed whenever you're willing to join a podcast right after having a child, and your wife is committed too to give you the time to do it. Because let's not sleep on the wives here who are probably like, "Are you kidding me?" So shout out Jordan's
No doubt.
wife and child for giving him time to do this. Jordan, could you give us a quick rundown of your career?
I played Division III basketball at York College of Pennsylvania. I guess we're almost 15 years ago now. Um, and then went from there. I was a GA at Messiah University for 2 years. Got an opportunity to go down to Nashville, Tennessee. So I spent a year as an assistant at Trevecca, which was a Division II in Nashville. From there, I got an opportunity through a unique opportunity working at camp, all this good stuff, connections, right? And got to Creighton. So went to Creighton, spent time about a year and a half in the video room, and we had a bunch of we had some pros in the building, so got to meet a lot of NBA guys as well. And then went to the Milwaukee Bucks. So spent 2 years with the Milwaukee Bucks in that organization as a G League assistant, and then spent 4 years at Gannon as a D2 assistant, and then back into the kind of into that prep space where I've been the last 3 years. And now I'm the director of post grad basketball down here, working alongside David Peavy, who will run everything on the high school side.
Well, I'm glad to have you on, and I know what you're doing, and I was like, this is gonna be so cool. Then I looked in your past and I saw Milwaukee Bucks, and man, I'm from Bucks Central. I was about 30 minutes outside of Pfizer Forum,
Yeah,
and we just experienced 10 years of bliss of Giannis, and now we're in this point where like, what do we do? And I'm sure there's a lot of Wisconsin heads out there who are listening to this right now and are thrilled to have a Bucks guy joining us and have Jordan. Real quick here, the Bucks are at this kind of inflection point with Giannis. What are you thinking here?
oof. I think that your best players dictate everything. Um, I've always thought that Giannis would stay there for a really long, like for his entire career, just because of how he goes about his business on a daily basis. But I'd be a little nervous right now if I'm a Bucks fan. I'd be a little nervous that, like, do I want to leave Milwaukee? Like, he's got great relationships there. Like, he's an unbelievable. All the things that you see and read like are accurate. Like, he just operates differently as a true pro, as a true all star. Right, one of the best in the league, and really one of the faces of the league. So I'd be a little nervous. There's a lot of people that could use a Giannis to put them over the hump to win a championship. So I'd be a little nervous if I were a Bucks fan right now.
I am nervous. Just small amount of confidence. I don't think he really wants to leave, but if I'm the Bucks, I'm demanding your wives, your children, everything in the trade. I want your families, your car, your home. I want it all. Wisconsin, in my opinion, is a sleeper state for basketball. I mean, you've seen the
Oh,
pros we've churned out lately: Tyler Hero, Tyrese Halliburton, Con Knipple, on and on and on. I think it's a state really on the come up
yeah, but
here,
you
and
also
you're spending your
you
time.
also
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
also can't forget about the probably one of the best Division III leagues in the country. Like,
Yeah, the WEAC.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
I mean those dudes can go.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a player of mine, the best player I ever had. He's the school's all-time leading scorer, all-time leading rebounder, all-time everything. You just go down the list, and he went and played in the WEAC at Stevens Point, and he couldn't even get on the court. And he was telling me just like how hard it was and how good they were. And I was like, yeah, what I'm learning, because I wasn't from Wisconsin, I'm from Illinois originally. And what I was learning, I was like, man, the WEAC is better than a lot of Division II schools at that level. So you're absolutely right. I mean, that level of basketball, I think there's a misconception on levels. Just because you're going to a higher level does not mean they're necessarily better. It's all about quality of program, area, and things like that. Quick question for you. We're talking about Wisconsin. You're in Florida now. Florida's like a hotbed for athletes. Why do you think that is? Is it just purely population size, or is there something else?
I think a lot of it's population size. I mean, when you think about Wisconsin, like this sheer number game, right? A sheer number game where
Hmm.
Florida, you throw Texas in there, right? Like just sheer California, like hotbeds for athletes, just because it's, I mean, it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. So if Wisconsin was the same size as Florida, you'd probably would say the same thing.
Right. I think with like football and baseball, having the warm temps year round
Yep.
probably is an advantage because you're probably outdoors and playing and having leagues go longer. But basketball, it's kind of interesting because everything can be done inside. We're kind of in the middle of AAU season, and AAU is, in my
Mm.
opinion, become a really controversial
Yeah.
topic in the basketball culture because you have people who are disagreeing with how much time is being put into it, how much money, how it's being played, all those things. So I kind of want to do some AAU. And the first thing I want to ask you, or what are some things that make up a high quality AAU program?
I think for me, from a high quality AAU program perspective, is, well, one, I think I'd have to start with, when does it become relevant? Um, I think until you get into that 15U, 16U, 17U space, that's probably when it starts to become a little more relevant. Um, but when you're like 13U or 12U, and dudes are traveling all over the country and doing all this stuff, and it's cool. But I think that aspect of it, like, you can also go on vacation. Like, you're allowed to go be with your family, like go play other sports. But I think ones that focus on development and have the ability to practice, I think those are two pretty big keys. Like the ones that can go 2 or 3 times a week, and they kind of focus that, and then they play maybe once a month, on a weekend, to kind of go play against somebody else locally, especially in those younger spaces, because you don't need to travel from, in my opinion, you don't need to travel from Florida to Wisconsin to play teams in the Midwest as a 13-year-old. Like, there's just, in my mind, like this, it's not as relevant. Um, do I think that there are some events out there individually that can be valuable because there's some really good young talent there? Yeah, I think you can mix that in there. But AAU wise, I think organizations that are able to operate where you're going 2 or 3 times a week and you're getting some type of structure involved in it, now you can see a progressional growth that is relevant, as opposed to just throwing guys out there on a weekend and saying, let's go hoop. Now at that point you're doing it for fun, but you're also doing it for fun at $100 admission fee for families, and $400 to get into the event, and then another $400 for the hotel and food. And so I think there's a lot of factors in that. But foundationally, I think being able to go a couple of times a week during the summertime as part of their core foundation as a program are what we look for.
Right. So here's the thing, Jordan. I've had so many like really good basketball minds
Mm.
on, and everyone expresses that similar sentiment. And but we're not seeing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're seeing the 8-year-olds travel across the country. However, the brightest minds are saying not necessary till high school, maybe middle school if you're at that crazy high level, possibly. But you really don't need to go more than 50 miles when it comes to playing AAU at those young ages. So why are we seeing it in your opinion? Is it purely monetary? That's kind of the skepticism in me. Is that the reason?
I think that it's marketing. I
Hmm.
think that marketing, there's some really good people at marketing that have created a, FOMO for families, where, like, yeah, you got to start early, you got to do this, you got to do that, and the marketing creates the monetary piece of it, and that makes people nervous. Like, oh, my kid's gonna miss out because my kids, they think their kid's pretty good, and reality is, like, you could be really good as a 12-year-old and not really good as a 16-year-old, or vice
Hmm.
versa. So I think a lot of it's monetary. I would say, and there's some scenarios in Florida that this exists. There's some organizations where they've got, backers, donors that have a lot of money, that will essentially cover them flying across the country and doing all that stuff. Yeah, go do it. Like
Yeah.
somebody can back you and do that. Like there's a couple organizations that do that, and there's people that wanna that's they're the kind of nonprofit and they want to give back in that capacity. Like if you're in that situation, yeah, like hotels covered, meals covered. They're gonna pay for my. I only have to maybe pay for my flight. Like that, those are the unique scenarios. But I think it's monetary. I think marketing. I think there's some really good mass marketing that is taking place in that.
I talked about this last week, and if you listen both weeks, I'm happy you listened. Sorry for telling the same story, but on the Mind the Game podcast with Steve Nash and LeBron, they had Luca on last 2 weeks ago, and I didn't realize Luka Doncic has a foundation that basically researches and develops youth athletes. So they're researching youth sports across the country and trying to figure out like how we can improve and all that stuff, which is really cool. And I didn't realize the whole podcast was on youth development, so I ate it up. And these guys who are three of the best players in NBA history are saying AAU is important. However, you still need to go out in your driveway and play 2-on-2 with your friends. You still need to go play 1-on-1 with your friends. You need to learn how to do like dribble moves and scoring moves that are just like natural to you without all this structure, because every single kid now has a trainer, every single kid now has an AU program and all these things, which aren't
Yeah,
bad. They're not bad at
yeah,
all. However, like there's a missing link now where all we're doing is throwing money at people. And I don't want to take away from people's careers because it is valuable, but we're just missing that link generationally of like, where's that park play come into place? So there's been times throughout doing this podcast that I've been labeled as anti-AAU, and I'm not. I'm really not. If you're
yeah,
recruitable and you have a chance to play college basketball, then play AAU and go get recruited and do your thing and save your family thousands of dollars on college. Go do that thing. But if you aren't even playing JV basketball in high school, like you're on the bench, spend less time paying money and more time working on your shot in the driveway.
yeah.
You know what I
No
mean? It's like
question.
that's kind of where I'm at with it. Do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I work out a group of kids twice a week. I've got a good friend down here that has asked me to do that with his specific group. And I don't really do that piece of it anymore. But he's asked me. I think he does it the right way. And last week, I mean, we're out in his backyard. He's got a court in his backyard in 90-degree heat, and I got seventh and eighth graders out there, and we do some basic stuff, and then I'm putting him in 2-on-2 scenarios. Like that's what we did. We did it for we played out of the dribble handoff on Monday for almost 30 minutes, and we stop and we can teach and we can understand and we can show them spacing and we can tell them attack the gap. We can talk them about being in help. Like you can teach out of that, and like you can watch the kids progressively get better. But we're putting them in live action 2-on-2 scenarios where they're competing and they're getting after it. They're learning how to compete. They're learning how to overcome failure. They're learning how to react to a defense. Like all of that within that 2-on-2. Like that's where, from a development perspective, what I've seen is a lot of people will go out and it'll be an hour of 1-on-0 moves and all this stuff, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. But what I tell my kids is, you could do 10 of those reps 1-on-0 is less valuable than one quality rep 2-on-2 or 1-on-1, because it's real, it's authentic. You got to see, you got to read it. Now there's some pieces that we work on 1-on-0 stuff, like that's part of it, because you want to teach, you want to give them an understanding, you want to break it down. But I look at it from 1-on-0, 1-on-1 with an advantage disadvantage scenario, then 1-on-1, and then we can go 2-on-2 to 3-on-3. And we do this in practice all the time when our guys get here. We do a ton of stuff 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 because everybody touches the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We can play out of concepts, like, and the rest of it's spacing. So when you think about a game, 5 out, 4 out, 1 in, like the other side's spaced while 2 or 3 man action's happening on the other side of the floor. And so we just try and replicate that as much as we can. So those are kind of my, it's, but I get, again, it goes to marketing. There's some really good people that are unbelievable at marketing, and they're like, well, this guy works with this or this or this. And it's like, yeah, he does, but like that guy also got there because for a different reason. Like he was already at that level. So that is it's can be hit or miss. You gotta have somebody that's willing to advocate in your corner. Like I wish there was more that are willing to advocate for somebody, for families. Um, that way they're a little bit protected. I use it as a tax example. Like if I went to my accountant and asked him a tax question, he would answer it within like 5 seconds because that's his deal. If I had to do my own taxes, it'd be an absolute disaster. Families, like, but for us in the basketball space, we could answer a question probably within 5 or 10 seconds and not use a lot of brain power to do it. But for a family going through it for the first time, whether it be recruiting or development, they start getting hit with all these emails and marketing and all this stuff, and families telling them this and families telling them that. Like, it's like them trying to do their taxes. Like, I don't know how to, and they're overwhelmed by it. So I think our responsibility is to try and advocate for them, not tell them what to do, but show them the options. And at that point, they've got to make the best decision for them.
So I'm at a spot where I agree with you wholeheartedly. And if you are training, it's a good hybrid of getting action and drills and stuff. I'm against bad training. It is not that controversial. I'm
Yeah.
against putting a race car on the track and dribbling to catch it and then shoot a layup
Nice.
or juggling basketballs while balancing on a ball.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm anti. So if anyone like comes at me like, how can you be against us making money doing this? We're right to do it. I was like, you are, but as long as they're getting better and you're not just like doing these crazy stunts to develop a shot, I think that's a good thing to be able to be mindful of that, you know.
I'll tell you what, though, all your Midwest listeners, ain't nobody doing that in the Midwest because all those suckers can shoot it. They can put it the ball on a straight line drive. They understand spacing, like that aspect of it. Watching one of my favorite events to recruit when I was in college, I would go to the Chicago. It's actually, I think it's this weekend. The Riverside, is it Riverside or Riverdale? They had the high school event, so the high school recruiting event live periods this weekend, and the Chicago event had all your Midwest high school teams there, and it was one of the best events for me to recruit because like there was structure to it. It wasn't chaos. Like everyone kind of got like they knew their role. Like it was one of the best events where you're watching and you're like, okay, like this is kind of fun to watch, as opposed to some other events like AAU wise. You go and you're like, whew, man, okay, like let me try and weed through this. Like they obviously didn't practice together, so you gotta sift through. Now you gotta go and you gotta have those relationships, and those are important. Um, but when it comes to joy, like man, that the Midwest Chicago event was one of my favorites to drive to every summer. Because I knew I was going to go watch good basketball, and there's going to be really good players in the gym.
Dude, when I got to Wisconsin, I was like, every single one of these kids can shoot. Everyone we're playing has five kids who can shoot threes. And in Illinois, you have, like you said, but there's a little more athleticism in
Yep,
Illinois. You're in the cities, you're in St. Louis area, your Chicago area, Springfield area, Carbondale. But in Wisconsin, it's just a bunch of rural kids who can shoot threes. And you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to cover the whole entire court for this kid.
exactly.
You talked about recruiting. Can you fill us in on some like good secrets to recruiting? What are you learning about the best ways to get a player recruited?
So everything I do, we operate out of what we call relational freedom, and that's what we can apply that to the court. We can apply that in the process. What I try and do, and what I would say our secret is, I really try and get on the phone with schools. I keep track of this for my administration, but I think I've spoken to about 350 plus. I think it's like 353 right now, college coaches at every level. This past year on the phone, and I want to understand what their sweet spot is, both university level and basketball wise, because that allows me to then give a player a realistic opportunity, right? Because now I'm recommending a player that's within their sweet spot, both university and basketball wise, to give them a chance to be recruited. Because that aspect of it, again, I think if you're a small college player, I think it's really good to stay regionally, because that's most likely, like, the WEAC is not going to recruit out of the people that are not bordering states, because I know they've got reciprocity with, I think with Illinois, and they may have reciprocity with Minnesota. So if you're not in one of those states, like, you're not playing in the WEAC because you don't get in-state tuition. So I think that's the aspect of it where I really try and dive deep relationally and understand the landscape, and then I understand how to put players in that fit that mold. Because there's loopholes in the government system, in the state system, that we can, if you're from here or from here, you make this, like, we can tailor all that together. If I'm a family trying to navigate it, I mean, I'm trying to do the best that I can. Hopefully, you can have somebody that can advocate for you in that space. I try and do that for some families, even outside of our prep program, just because I've seen it. It's a lot of nasty. It's a lot of nasty, and there's a lot of, I'm gonna call them half truths, in recruitment. There's a lot of, if I post on social media, I'm gonna get recruited, and, like, maybe, but maybe not. So it's there's a lot of false sense of that. So it's hard as a family. It's hard. So I think having an advocate, and it's hard as a high school coach, like, straight high school
Yep.
coaches. People will call me and they're like, "Oh, my high school coach didn't do this." I'm like, "Yeah, your high school coach is also a teacher. He also has a family. Like, he doesn't have time to get on the phone with like, I got, after this, I got a few coaches I got to call, but that's part of my job. Like, high school coaches
Mhm.
have real lives."
I have a question for you because this is really good. And I have friends with kids who will probably be recruited, and they ask me these questions pretty frequently. And I like what you said about half truths, because you do have to navigate that. And the human condition is to believe truth as truth, because as humans, we can't be skeptical of everything. Otherwise, we can't survive in this world. So we have to just take people at their word, which makes recruiting very challenging. As a high school coach, I was exposed to that the hard way by having kids told certain things. And I was a part of those calls. And they got to the school and it wasn't that way, and they were kind of brokenhearted, and I felt horrible because I was like, I failed you, but at the same time, I don't know what's true and what's not either, because the human condition. My question for you is this, because I've been asked this: is there such thing as sending out too much film? Are you wasting time, or is anybody you can send film to or contact a good idea? I mean, outside of, like, obviously if you're a community college player, you're not emailing the University of Illinois. Like, is there such thing as sending too much film?
I would say yes to that, because I think at that point you just kind of overwhelm somebody, and they just hit delete. I think your best pathway in that is trying to find a connection point. I think it's trying to find an adult that can call or get a hold of the coach at that institution to have a conversation, so that way they really get feedback. I think that's kind of your best pathway. I've had kids. I can remember a kid when I was at Gannon. I think I got an email from him probably twice a week. I don't remember his name, but I remember twice a week getting an email from this kid. He was a 6'2" guard out of Pittsburgh. I can't remember his name. And I'm like, I felt like I don't have time to respond to like, I think I hit him the first time and said, "Hey, thanks for your film. Like, all the best." And then after that, like, I don't have time to sift through the 25, 30 emails that I'm getting by 12 noon. Um,
Mm.
so I'm going relationship based first. So, like, I think if I'm do I think, to answer your question, I think yes. I think it's, how do I get an adult to get in touch with, or a mentor to get in touch with a coach that's willing to have a conversation? Because it's about timing too. That coach in September, like, if you're trying to get recruited in, let's say November, they're in the middle of their season right now. They don't know if they're good yet, if they're bad yet. They don't really know what they need, what they want. Like, they don't know yet. By the time you get to January, you know that, okay, this guard's not good enough. I need to get somebody different. This big's not good enough. I need to
Yeah.
get somebody different. Man, this wing, we did not think he was going to be this good, but he's a dude. So we're good at that position, at least for another year, unless he transfers. So if he transfers, we got to be aware, but we're good at this spot, right? So some of it's timing, and a kid's not going to understand that. But hopefully, as an adult, you can get on the phone with the coach and try and just have a 10, 15-minute conversation. Hey, where you at? What's your sweet spot? What do you guys generally look for? What makes sense at your institution? Um, and now you can dialogue a little bit. Hopefully now, hey, I got a kid. Would you mind taking a look at him? Or would you mind
Yeah.
having an
Yeah.
assistant having this and give me feedback just so I can give him? I think from a human level, if you're able to get to the coach, I think most coaches will be like, hey, man, I really appreciate you. Like, he's just not good enough. Or, hey, you know what? Like, he's got a chance. Why don't you have him sign up for the elite camp? And then the adult has to then follow up before the elite camp and say, hey, just so you know, Johnny's coming to camp. Um, just as a reminder, because again, he probably forgot. Not because
Right.
not because he's
Right.
not out of disrespect, but just pure like not on my mind.
Right. So here's the thing, Jordan, that makes me kind of cringe, but also heartbroken when I see film being posted on X and censor around things like
Mm,
that. Whenever I see a like a 6'4" and under kid in a small conference posting film of like post moves and straight line drives, I'm like, oh no.
I know. It's
Like you have no idea how unfortunate this is for you, but sucks to be you. You're
yep.
done. You can't be a and that happens probably a lot, right? Like kids don't even realize like positional value, size, and stuff like that.
There's a lot of people that don't understand how to structure a highlight film that's relevant to showing a skill set. I think
Yeah, can you go into that, please? Go into like what should they be
yeah, so
doing?
I think your first 40 seconds are really critical. So if you do not catch my attention in the first 40 seconds of your highlight, I'm probably stopping. I'm not going any further. Like I'm gonna stop. So I think you've got to show your athleticism because athleticism's cool and it catches your attention. Like, oh, okay, he's athletic enough, and so I think athleticism. I think your ability to make a play for either yourself or others off the bounce, and then your ability to shoot it with range. You've got to have a mixture of those three elements, whether it be 5 clips or 6 clips in your first 40 seconds, and they've got to be your most impressive clips. They've got to be hey, I know most states still don't have shot clocks, which is we can go down a rabbit hole in a different day on that, but um,
I did on my podcast yesterday that's going to play
no,
Monday. So if you're listening to this last week, me and Kyle talked a long time because Arkansas has had it for several years. Wisconsin's saying, no way, buddy, we're not doing it. And we went on, we went on a deep rabbit trail
well,
on
you
that
did.
one.
Well, make sure you tune in because those are good ones. So it's that dribble move where I am maybe hitting it in and out between the legs, step back, shot, because I'm showing that I can create separation off the bounce. Because there are moments in a game where, like, I'm going to give you the ball as my best player, and you might have to go get a bucket. And it's your ability to shoot it with range. If you can show your range, um, great, like that aspect of it. And then your athleticism. Are you playing above the rim? If you're not an above the rim guy, are you defending 94 feet? But whatever shows those three elements, that's got to be in your first 40 seconds to at least get them to continue to watch. If it's not, like if you're showing just in order based on your games and all that stuff, and it's just not, it's cool. You could post it on X, but like, and nobody's watching.
Yeah, it is unfortunate too because these kids are sold a bill of goods by a lot of different people, and they also have their own dreams and desires, and they have the NBA posters on their wall growing up. And I don't think people realize the sheer number of basketball players in the country. And not even in the country.
Yeah.
Let's expand it to the globe, because these kids now are wanting to come to colleges here to play, from Europe and places like that. And unfortunately, that's a competition for you too. And you might be awesome in the conference you're in, but you're not, you compared to the rest of the world,
Yeah.
your conference may not be good, and you might be averaging 30, but your conference might stink, and there's no one above 6'3" in your conference. So then you're thinking like, man, I'm a shoe in to play college, and nobody's calling you, and you're like, what the heck happened? But unfortunately, circumstances do matter. And honestly, there's probably some kids at the bottom of a conference in Chicago that are much better than a kid in a rural farm area who's averaging 20 a game. And that's an unfortunate part of this whole thing. Do you have to like talk to kids at all ever, or have you, and kind of tell them that? Or how does that conversation go?
Um, what I try and do is I try and get feedback. Again, I can utilize the relationships that I have. So I'll send a film out and be like, hey, can you give me feedback on this kid real quick? And then I can just show them and be like, hey, this is what an NAIA coach that just went to the tournament has to say about your game. I got,
Yeah.
it's ripping the Band-Aid off, but there's more like, hey, this is the reality of it. Like you gotta, it's just the deal. Like their job in the position that I'm in right now, my job's not on the line. Theirs is. Your
Yeah.
job is on the, their
Yeah.
job is on the line. Like that is, and that even at the NAI and the Division II level, obviously there are some different than others, but if you lose back to back years at any of those levels, like the athletic director is going to be like, I'm gonna give you another year here because some like you better fix this. Like you're not going to be able to consistently be bad at what you do. Like their job's on the line, so they can't like you got to be different as a player. So yeah, those conversations in
Right.
place, they're not the most pleasant, um, but they're important because you got to be able to tell the truth. Like this is the reality.
Jordan, I had a kid playing for me one year, and he was like 5'9", and he asked me about recruiting. And I said, buddy, you're 5'9", and I'm so sorry, but you better be the fastest kid in the state, or be so strong that nobody can knock you off a spot. And it's really stinks. But guess what, man? You've got a life to live. You got a family to have, a career to be had, and the ball stops bouncing one day for everyone. And unfortunately, that day will probably be after high school. And that it's the hardest thing you can do. But I truly believe if you're working with kids or working with athletes, the best thing you can do is tell them the truth. The worst thing you can do is lie or mislead them, because that just screws up trust and all those things down the road. And it's having these hard conversations. And one of the things I want to do now, I want to take a recruiting hat off and put a coaching hat
Okay.
on, and talk about some coaching scheme stuff. And you've spent a lot of time crunching film and breaking down film, scouting, recruiting, all that stuff. What are some things that you see on the film that make you stop and go, this coach is awesome. He gets it. Like this stuff is mwah, beautiful. Like, so what are things that you would see in a film that would tell you that?
I think the first is spacing. I think teams that are really well spaced, when you can see that, you're like, all right, this guy's God knows what he's doing. And then I think deeper than that, when you the first thing I do when I watch film is I try and understand personnel. So we can watch and understand personnel. So when you watch film then holistically, and you're watching the full game, getting the full scope, and you're like, man, this guy, like he's so good at getting the ball to this player at his spot, and you're like, how do we stop that? Because they've been able to navigate that piece of it so well, whether it's through action, whether it's through in transition or whatever it may be. The thing that I watch as you try and understand that again holistically, I think guys that separate themselves, there's an identity that takes place. You may not like that identity, it may not fit you, but you can watch a game and be like, they have an identity, whatever that may be.
Yep.
And they're willing to die on that hill playing the way they play. And that's where I'm like, those are the guys that make me nervous to go play against, because I'm like, he knows what he's doing and he's willing to die on that hill. So they're probably really, really good at that. And we've got to be, I think what people then tend to do is like, oh, well, we need to adjust to try to counter that. So they become insecure in their own identity, which again, you lost before you started because you're trying to match what
Yep.
they're doing. Like he can do some really good stuff. We play coaches right now that I'm like, man, this guy's really good at what he does. That doesn't fit me though. Like I respect it. Like we play school, Lakeview. Lakeview, they do a phenomenal job. He runs a bunch of sets and they got some really good action. And I'm like, and you watch them, like it's gonna be really like these guys are well organized. They're well organized. They know what they're
Yeah.
doing. Not me. Like I'm okay with that. Like, but I know I'm going into a battle because they're super well organized, and we're gonna have to defend action. But like that, I can't change who we are either. So that for me is the coaches that when you watch a game and you can quickly create an identity of like this is how they do it. You're like that guy's different. Like we're in for a battle because they're secure in who they are and they're willing to operate in that space. And not everybody is.
Yeah, mine is defensive rotations. So if I see dudes on defense zipping around and covering each other in recovery, I'm like, this guy is cooking right now
Mm, mm.
with oil. And I gave advice to a young coach the other day, and I said because he's retaining, he's getting a bunch of information, and he was asking, what do I think, and that kind of thing, and he was getting information from everywhere. I'm going to learn this. 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 And I said, my advice to you is to singularize some of this
Yeah.
stuff and become really good at like one or two things and then develop from there instead of being, you know, okay at a bunch of things. So I told him to start thinking in this mentality. Whenever someone sees your team coming up on the schedule, your bus unloading, players walking into the gym, what are they going? This team is going to be tough in blank tonight. Like, oh my gosh, we better buckle up because they're gonna, get great shots or transition really fast or play a great zone or get in the gaps really well or cover really well. Like, be known for something
Yep.
and get really good at that one thing, and then you can start kind of growing from there. But if you're not really great at anything, a good coach is probably going to pick you apart.
And that's exactly what we just exactly like it's everyone wants to be really good at everything. Not everyone. That's probably too broad. You get caught in the trap of trying to be good at everything, and you fight that. I think you fight that. And again, I'm still on the younger side. I'm only 33. I probably look like I'm 21, but yeah, I get it's funny. People laugh when I pull up. My favorite moment last year is we played a brick and mortar prep school that has been around for 50 years. Like they're known for producing high majors, all this stuff, and like dude's a well seasoned vet, and how we do things here and how we play conceptually and what we do defensively. Like we forced him to call 4 timeouts in the first 9 minutes, and he was just livid. And you could tell he's like looking at me like, bro, like you don't like, because he didn't know who I was, he didn't know where I'd been, like all that stuff, and he just looks at me, and you're like, yeah, we're good at what we do too. Like
That's
we're
right.
good at what we do too. I know you're super talented. We're gonna come in prepared, but I get that it's so funny. Like I enjoy those moments. Whenever
Is there a better feeling as a coach to when another coach calls a timeout within, I don't know, 2 minutes of a game? That's one of the best feelings, right?
no question, and because you know your guys are prepared and they're willing to go to battle for you. Because that like I
Yeah.
don't want to get it twisted. It's got less to do with me and more to do with the fact that the guys chose to buy in to a process that is extremely difficult in what we do, and it's them owning it, and they're the ones that went out and executed that, and that's what I like. Those moments, it's more joy, I guess, on my end because I'm like, you know what, our guys are buying into something. They're starting to believe it. They know they can do it. Like, all right, we got a chance to have to be joyful in this season. Um,
Yeah.
that's where it's fun, and where it really gets fun.
Yeah. My thing was, as a coach, I wanted to specialize in, I was under a great up the line defensive coach as a JV coach, and that was really solid. But I philosophically believed in switching things at the high school level at the time because I felt like, I don't know, 5% of teams or kids can really take advantage and isolate it,
Yeah.
especially in the middle divisions where we were at. And
Yeah.
also, I felt like there was value in my kids learning how to guard different positions. So if you're being recruited, it's like I've guarded guards, I've guarded wings, I've guarded post players. Like I can guard them all. So I saw a lot of value in that, but it's really hard to do in up the line because, Wisconsin's a pack line state and a lot of things under the 3-point line. So I merged them and I went up the line, switch everything, and we became amazing at it. And we became the team like you cannot screen us, and it's going to be hard to to swing the ball too. So literally, your options are beating us one on one, or cross court, kick to the corner, catch us off guard, shoot a three. And I felt like for me as a coach, what am I going to hang my hat on and be great? And I think everyone's got to have some sort of conviction. So the next question is, do you have any like hot takes about scheme? Because my hot take was, I think I can switch everything at the high school level and be more than fine. Do you have any hot takes?
Oof. I think my hot take would be, for me, we defend 94 feet. Um, and we get after people like we're gonna break your spirit. And I think my hot take is that you can do that, and you don't have to have a bunch of athletes around to also do that. Um, and we're gonna get after you. We're gonna wear you down. We're gonna do things the right way. We teach defense the right way. We know we're gonna have moments in a half court, but I think people are afraid to give up control because you give up a lot of control offensively when you choose to defend that way. So you're also going to give up a bucket or two. Like somebody's going to break it, and you're going to have a bucket or two, and like so like that for me, like that's what we hang our hat on. Nova Southeastern's won 3 national championships at the Division II level doing it. I
Yeah.
think 3 of the 8 Elite 8 members at the Division II level all did it this year. They all played that style and tempo. So you're seeing it a lot,
Yeah.
not a lot more, but you're seeing people willing to give up control and not just run good.
Can I interject here? Because here's what, and I'll let you finish, but here's what coaches that aren't in that defensive intellectual mindset don't realize. If you want to plan a good defense, you have to be willing to give up something. A lot of people want to do a defense and they're like, no, this defense has to be perfect. Like, no, your defense is designed to take advantage of certain things, but you have to be able to live with X. So if I'm going to run this defense, I am living with this shot, I'm living with this spacing, or I'm living with, in your case, maybe a couple transition points. So my advice to coaches, after talking to a lot of coaches and experiencing myself on the defensive end, is you have to start thinking about, what am I going to live with the offense being able to do? For me, it was that cross court kick to the corner. And if they knock down 10 of those in a game, then they knock down 10 in a game. And I, say, good job. You did a good job.
Exactly.
So now you finish a trail you're on, but I wanted to interject with that.
I think that's accurate. Like we're willing to give up some stuff. So like that's, but it all goes back to our previous question, right? Of what identity, like you gave advice to a young coach who's trying to kind of do all this stuff, he'll figure it out. He'll figure out like what fits him. Like I think you got to do what fits your personality. Like I think there's an element of that too in it, where when you ask what's a hot take, well, it's a hot take for me because I think it fits who I am. It fits how I try and go about my business, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna recruit guys to that. We're gonna teach guys to that, and we're gonna live and die on that hill. Because that's what here's what I learned and I learned this at Creighton probably more than any other spot that I was at. Mac has an identity. You know what it's gonna look like. You know what you're gonna get. They got the let it fly mentality, and it's why he's been able to create in the Midwest a small Big East private school is now contending consistently in the top 25 and like he's so he had an identity. Like they have an identity of what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it.
Yeah, so this is really funny, Jordan, because you must have my notes. Because my next question, if you're on the video feed, it was what makes McDermott so good? And that was
That's
literally the
wild.
next question I had. So you must have had my notes. And we're going to transition to that because I'll tell you why here in a second. But as you spoke about coaches and their personality bleeding into it, that gave me a light bulb to start researching. Like, the things that we do, does it match our personality? Because I'm a bit of a unique guy. I don't believe like conventional things typically in life. I'm kind of goofy and I'm all over the place. So being all over the place in a game with switching and up the line like that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that gave me a light bulb to like start researching and asking people is how your personality affects what you choose, which thanks for that, man. And then the second thing was I was probably one of five high schoolers in America with a Doug McDermott jersey in high school. And
Nice.
so I have a vested interest in this. And I just wanted you to talk about your experience in coaching under Greg McDermott. And you kind of talked about what made him special a little bit. But if you just want to go into the weeds of what that experience was like, that would be really cool for me as a McDermott fan, but also the people listening.
Yeah, I got a PhD in basketball while I was there. Um, they're so detailed in what they do. Mac is he is an incredible communicator. Um, I can't recall a moment, and I've worked for a lot of different people. I cannot recall a moment where Mac publicly in practice straight up blasted somebody. He would he would speak in a way where he got his point across to the group that didn't belittle anybody as he approached an individual to have a quiet one-on-one conversation that nobody really know what was like what was being said, to settle down and just create a calming presence in that. Like his ability to communicate and understand the moment and understand what this guy needs and what that guy needs and this how this guy operates and the psychology of all that, on top of understanding, like, we used to break down 500 possessions of every opponent that we played, and he
Mm.
knew. He used to watch set. We'd have to put on his eye. We put it on his iPad, and he'd go home and he'd watch common. He would watch opponents of um, like common opponents that kind of play similar to Creighton. So he'd watch those as well as like the last three games, and he would know it. Like he would know it within. I mean, his ability to retain and understand and see, and then also to be able to communicate. Like you're watching a master class in leadership on a daily basis. And the one thing it breaks my heart is I don't know that I fully appreciated it at that point in my career. I didn't. It didn't dawn on me until probably my after 2 years in the NBA. I didn't realize how good he actually was in it, because I don't know, I was probably 24 at the moment, and I
Yeah.
felt like I knew everything already, and I operated with a level of ignorance. I knew how to work hard, which is why I still have relationships with those guys. I think they all appreciate that, like I knew how to work hard, but they would probably tell you the same thing. Like, yeah, you probably felt like you knew too much. And now when I look back, I'm like, man, he was so good at this. He was so good at the communication piece and being able to create calm and being able to just, hey, let's have a side conversation on this one, or to rally the group in a moment. And then I think his superpower is his ability to delegate and hire really, really high quality people. Like Jeff
Mm.
Vanderloo, their ops guy, so good at what he does. Murph is his assistant to the head coach. Like Murph was the head coach at Hampton and won a 15 seed over a 2 seed. Like he's on their staff, and then that staff that I was a part of. D Rock is now the head coach in Indiana. Steve Lutz is now the head coach at Oklahoma State. Al Huss has been the head coach at High Point for the last 2 years and taken them to the tournament. He's now the head coach in waiting at Creighton. And again,
Wow.
in a next level move. Like Like he's like Mac plays chess and he's so good at it. And then you got a head coach in Murph that's in the building. Um, and then you got guys like John McHugh and Jeff Vanderloot that like they handle the day to day. Like nobody like it's just an operation, and Mac just everybody does what they do.
That's really amazing. I think it's really important. One of the things you said, and just to plug my website, it's brand new. It's going to have blogs, leadership coaching, Christian fatherhood, things like that, our podcast links, and all sorts of stuff like that. Just a quick plug if you want to find it, v3content.org. But what the tagline that I wrote that's on the main page was, I was average in coaching, I was average in my marriage, I was average in my friendships, and I was average at work for a long time because I was proud and I thought like, I got this. I got the answers. You got advice for me. I'm good. I don't need it. And once I broke that, I became exponentially better as a husband, as a father, as a coach, and on and on. And I think that's one of the most important lessons that young men can
Yeah.
learn in this field, where in athletics, you are innately proud. You think you are the best. And to an extent, you kind of have to believe that as an athlete. You got to believe you're better than the person on the other side of you. But when you become an adult and that attitude's kind of got to leave and you got to become humble and you've got to go, all right, who can offer me the best advice? And I'd love to surround myself with really good people who can challenge me positively, because we stand in our own way. And I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the things, one of the reasons I started doing this was to start saying like, hey, we need to start learning from this awesome coaching community instead of insulating ourselves in this little bubble.
It's good. It's good.
So here's what I want to end with. I have two things left. I have one question left for you, and then a lightning round that I do with my guests. The question is this: in your social bios, you have Nehemiah 6:3, which is basically saying like, I'm doing a great thing. I can't be distracted. Don't bother me. I'm going to keep working. I'm not going to allow myself to get content or relax, which was one of the central messages at the Global Leadership Summit last year, which I loved. And it's kind of become a verse that I've really thought long and hard about when doing this. So it's kind of awesome that that's kind of special to you.
Yeah.
How does that mentality impact you in your career?
Yeah, I think it speaks in there like I'm engaged in a great work, so I cannot come. And it's understanding for me like what is the purpose and what I learn a lot of stuff from Andy Stanley. I listen to his podcast and I read his books and Visioneering, and then you got John Eldridge in the Wild at Heart series that he does as well. And I kind of have a core group of books that I try and listen to every year, sometimes twice a year, where I'll put it on my audio books through the library app, the Libby app. That we can get a book for free, and it's great, and I can listen to it. So all that kind of in remembrance of being able to, again, we're engaged in a great work. So my job is to be a great example to our players. And it's all built around being a great brother, husband, and father. And am I great at all three of those things right now? No. Like we've got a lot of work to do. Like I'm going to do my best, but it's staying engaged in that work, because I think the enemy is really really good at creating micro distractions that aren't on the surface like chaotic or crazy, but they're nonetheless distractions um, that can sift you away and distract you from, okay, like we've got two kids now. I got to make sure that when I'm at home, like I did it yesterday. Now, again, I'm not great at it, so don't give me full credit for it. My daughter wanted to play with her cards and flip cards, and she made up some game, and so we sat in the little playroom for 15 minutes, and just did that. Right, that's something that I've got to get better at and make sure I'm intentionally doing that. But I can easily get distracted. Like that's my great work. If I can make sure I'm spending intentional time with her as a father, with my wife, which again she would say I got a lot to work on, in spending intentional time with her. That way we can again engage in that great work, because that's I can no one else can be my daughter's Like I'm her father. My son, I'm his father. Like I look at that same my wife. Like that aspect of it. If I can get those two things right to the best of my ability, no, I'm gonna fall short. But I'm engaged in a great work, and the enemy's just phenomenal at creating those distractions. So it's just a reminder of what he did, and what God had called him to do in rebuilding the wall. Because everybody just kept
Absolutely. Amen.
throwing stuff at him, throwing stuff at him, throwing stuff at him, and it was just the enemy finding different and creative ways. And he's like, "Nah, God's called me to rebuild this, and I'm gonna rebuild it." So, what does that look like within the flow of our lives, right? Because we're not rebuilding a wall. I'm not physically doing that piece of it, but for me, it's being a great brother, husband, and father. That's my wall I have to protect. I'm building a wall, and that not in a way. That's my wall to be able to do it that way. Because I want our kids
Yep.
to know that. I want like that piece of it's really important for me. That's why it's on there. So I appreciate you asking that question. I appreciate you doing your research on that because it's in there for a purpose. Because I want you to go research it, and then you get to kind of share your faith a little bit. Because you don't always get to do that when you work in an environment that's not necessarily built for faith. And um, the only spot that I really worked at, Messiah and Trevecca, it was common. Those are both Christian based institutions. Now I get to be it out. I look at those as like the boat, and now I'm off the boat, and I'm
Yep.
trying to get people back to the boat because there's a lot of peace and joy um, but God's asked me to be in the water right now, so let's go in the water.
Yep. My verse on the socials is Proverbs 27:17. You know, or basically to make iron sharpen, you have to sharpen it with other iron. So in order for people to become better, you have to be around other people to encourage them, which is what I'm trying to do with this podcast and in life, and trying to be around people who can help me. Because I've had people ask me to mentor them, but my response to them is like, you can teach me something too.
Yeah,
That's the beautiful thing about this world. And I was talking to a coach who was saved recently, and he goes, I just have this like unexplainable peace. What's that deal? And I was like, that's the deal. It is this
that's the
like
deal.
unexplainable peace that sits in your heart, and you go, no matter what comes my way, I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm good. So I think that's super important, and I love that you're carrying that message. And it is hard. And one of the things that's come with this podcast and the blogs has been coaches who are believers going, thanks, man. I needed somebody else to be in my corner, because at times it can be a lonely place to be, saying no to the late night bar trips and the illegal recruiting and all the things that might come with it. That's just hard to
yeah.
do, and to do the right thing. Any parting messages on that before we enter our lightning round and finish up?
Let's have at it. Let's have it. The lightning.
All right, 5 questions, lightning round.
Man.
First question: thoughts on Wisconsin cheese curds?
Oh, really, really good. Really good. My wife,
One of the best snack foods, yeah.
one of the best snack foods. Brian Butch. When at Wisconsin named Brian Butch took me to a spot to get my first Wisconsin cheese curd.
That's awesome. Brian Butch is still really, really prevalent in the Wisconsin
Yeah,
basketball scene.
it sure is.
So I hope he gets this message. Second question: best player you've coached. Now, there's probably tons. You don't want to leave anyone out, but who's a guy that's like, man, this guy was amazingly phenomenal, great player?
Man, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Travis Trice, and I'm gonna go
Yeah.
Trice because played at Michigan State. Obviously, I've been around a lot of talented players, but his mentality as an individual and like the human element, like and how he went about his work. Like, did he end up being an NBA player? No, but like, the special dude. He's been able to play overseas and do that aspect of it. So I'm gonna go that route with that one as opposed pound to pound talent.
He was awesome in college. I loved watching him. What's the one biggest difference between coaching in high school and in college?
Oh, maturity,
Mm,
maturity, and and
mm.
and, and
Uh,
I mean, there's a high school kids are funny, man. I'm I'm getting used to it.
Absolutely. Who are your coaching idols? Who are two or three guys that you're like, I study them religiously?
Mm, who do I study? I spent a lot of time watching Mike Malone's stuff with the Nuggets. Um,
Mm,
I've spent a lot of time, and I got to know Mike a little bit through training camp. I spent a lot of time watching Dagnall with the Thunder. I got to spend time with him as well. They had an OKC day where they flew us all out and for a weekend, and we got to spend time with their front office and that. So those are two that I've watched because we try and replicate some of that quick NBA action in that regard, and then Nova Southeastern's Jim Crutchfield and what they do and what he's created with his style of play defensively. I've watched a lot of his stuff, and Jordan Fee, who's at Gannon, and those guys.
okay, last question. Ball, you have the ball. You're down 1, 10 seconds left. Timeout or let it play.
That's a hard one because it's a feel. Like it's a feel of the game. Like how did I get the ball? Like did they just miss a shot and we're coming down in transition? Is it a straight dead? Did they make a shot and their defense is set, and they've got space, or there's no space and their defense is already set? I'm probably calling a timeout. But if it's a missed shot and there's 10 seconds to go, like we're prepared for that. But if it's a straight dead ball situation and I feel like somebody's hot and I need to get him the ball, like we're gonna put the ball in somebody's hands and call a timeout. So situational. There's not.
Yeah, I think that's another.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's right. I think that's another hot take of mine. Is I'd always go no timeout because I felt like if you practice that enough as a coach, uh, and your guys were prepared for that situation, I didn't want the other team to be able to get as prepared as we were. Like if I felt like I had a group that was, really locked in practices and stuff like that, like I didn't want the other coach to be able to get defensive players or matchups or setup. And we usually had some, basically like ATO, but all at the end of a game,
Yeah.
sets that you knew you were getting a good look. And I was willing to let it ride. And it did bite me a few times. So
Yeah.
you can't win them all. Jordan, I want you to plug any of the things that you want to plug. I know you have a website. Tell people where to find your stuff.
Yeah. So we do work with guys outside of prep. It's Martz Madness coaching.com. And you can see that on our Twitter as well. My personal Twitter got shut down, or X, I guess we gotta start calling it X. I don't guess Elon didn't like retweets that I did of basketball, so my personal Twitter got shut down. So I no longer have that one. But we've got the March Madness page. So we work with a couple families outside of what I do here. I only work with a couple a year, and to help them as from an advocate perspective to really try and navigate that. I don't overwhelm that. I'm not looking to work with 100 people, but if there's 5 or 6, to generally work with about 10 per year in the process, just to help them navigate it in a way that we can save you a lot of money in that process. So that's part of what I've seen at this level. It's really the only reason why I'm doing it, is because I've just seen so many half truths that people are spending, and there's, I'm not going to put people on blast, but I mean, there's certain people that will do this, and big, massive organizations that just take people's money, that exists, that you're shelling out up to $5,000 for, and it breaks my heart. I've talked to a lot of families. I've had moms cry on the phone, realizing like they just wasted a lot of money, and I'm like, I can do something about this for a few. So if I can do it for a few, like I'm okay with that. I can't do it for everybody, but I can do it for a few. So we do that, and we put people in touch with coaches, and we try and help them navigate the process. But yeah, marchmadnesscoaching.com, and then you can hit me up on Twitter. But for me, I'm very thankful, man. Thank you for allowing me to come on and hang out for a little bit and chat. So I appreciate your time and what you're doing, and just trying to create that connection point amongst coaches across the country. Because these are fun to listen to. When I'm on my 30-minute drive, I can just throw on podcasts and kind of listen, and you're like, okay, like I'm not alone in this. Like I'm not alone in this. It can feel
Yep.
like that sometimes, but I'm not alone in this. So even though I'm not directly talking to somebody or someone's not directly talking to me, you can listen to podcasts like yourself, and that creates a sense of like, okay, there is community out there. I'm okay today. We can take one more step forward.
Absolutely. For the sake of time, we are going to close up. So I'm super grateful that you decided to join after
Yeah.
having a child
Yeah.
and being busy in the workday. Like that is shout out Jordan's wife
Yeah,
again.
no doubt.
And what's
Appreciate
her
you,
name?
Sarah. Sarah's my wife, so appreciate you.
Yes. Yes. And then also let's get his X followers back up. Find him on X and I'll
Yeah,
post
Beast moves.
his handle with the clips. Let's get those back up. And if you're interested and you're tuning in this coming winter basketball season, I'm going to do my first ever basically hard knocks season. I have a coach up in Wisconsin of a pretty high level school, and 30 minutes a week we're going to podcast and talk about his season. Why did you make that decision, or who did you keep and why on the team? And I'm
Okay.
intrigued because nobody's doing this, man. And so there's no blueprint, and we're just going to let it rip. And I think that's going to be interesting. I'll keep going with the Christians and athletics and that sort of thing as well. And I'm super grateful you guys are deciding to join us every week, and I'll see you guys next week.